Pull up, grab the fuel nozzle, and get ready to fuel up on trends and strategies to grow your travel center business in this episode of The Truck Stops Here, brought to you by NATSO. Now, here are your hosts, Amy Toner and Darren Schulte.
Hello, welcome to today's episode of The Truck Stops Here. I'm your host, Amy Toner, and I'm here with my co-host, Darren Schulte.
Hi, Amy.
Hey, Darren. Today, we have the pleasure of having NATSO's CEO and President Lisa Mullings with us.
Hello.
Hi, Lisa. So we're going to talk about trucking trends. Lisa is so good at spotting trends and forecasting the future for our members. Darren, I know you've mentioned over the years so many trends that she's identified in the trucking area. Can you name just a few?
Certainly, rise of the box trucks, diesel fuel being sold at the auto fueling stations, Pony Express models increasing, and things such as less trucks being purchased with sleeping cabs, just to name a few.
And there's so many reasons for that. You know, there's a lot of things going on at once that sort of combined create these trends. And one of the things that we know, of course, is the ELDs. That really changed the industry dramatically. And also the last mile and first mile delivery, you know, the Amazon model, Amazon effect, that really contributed to some of these changes, particularly when you look at the box trucks. Recently I was at a meeting and the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association participates in this group on research in trucking. And they were talking about how a lot of their members are now buying the box trucks. They're, for the first time, those trucks purchased, they're actually more than, you know, the large trucks that you're used to seeing. And that was just, I thought, really interesting because their members are all independent drivers. So a lot of the smaller trucking companies are now moving to these smaller sort of delivery type trucks because they don't have to get a CDL necessarily for that. They don't have all of the hours of service regulations and things. So, and there's money to be made there. So that's one of the reasons why that's going on. It's sort of those two factors combined.
You know, when you talked about like the rise of the box trucks, the ELDs, and other things like we referenced earlier on, what I really thought was really fascinating is when you talked about ELDs before really anyone was talking about the impact, and you had referenced that you thought there was going to be impacts inside the store with ELDs. And then I've shared with you when I've talked to drivers, that sure enough has happened. Do you mind kind of,
Well, you must be talking about the quick service.
Yeah.
Yes. Drivers don't want to wait anymore. They don't have time, whether it's waiting to pump fuel or whether it's waiting inside to pay for it or pay for something else. They just don't have the time. If a truck driver in the past was waiting in line for fuel, I would doubt seriously that they would have accrued that on their logbooks. But now, that type of thing happens. And so they have to be very, conscious of where they're spending their time because that's money out of their pockets when they're not on the road making progress.
And it's taking place in the stores. I see it all the time. I see it in their shopping habits. I used to like to say 30 years ago, truck drivers were shoppers, for example. They'd go in and they'd mosey through the store and look and so forth. And now they've become buyers like all of us. It's all about speed. When I speak to drivers, they tell me, and again, it supports exactly what you kind of forewarned us. Drivers will tell me, if I have to go deep inside the store to get a sandwich or to wait in line to get a taco, whatever it may be, there's a less likelihood I'm going to make that purchase because I just don't have the time anymore, right, wrong, or indifferent. And when I compare, travel centers that are doing X amount of diesel gallons that have their food closer to where the drivers come in versus those same exact travel centers doing the same type of gallons, but where their food is deeper into the store, those stores that have the food closer to where the drivers enter always have significantly higher food sales than those that don't.
That's really incredible. I'm not surprised, though. Everybody seems to be more in a hurry now, whether they are or not. I know from traveling, on vacations and things when we stop at truck stops, if there's a long line, for example, my husband is a lot less patient with me buying something, for example. So if I'm standing in a line and there's 4 or 5 people in front of me, he's more likely to say, do we really have time for this? And I'm more likely to put it back. And I think that is probably something that's happening in any place where there are lines.
I've talked about a lot of times, do our members really understand how long it takes to fuel a vehicle, a truck specifically?
How long does it take?
A lot longer than most people think. We've said on some previous podcasts where putting fuel into the tank is very, very quick because of the high flow nozzle, and it spews out a significant amount of gallons. It might take 3 to 5 minutes to put in, X amount of gallons. However, the process, getting out of the truck, washing the window, doing that whole thing, turning the pump on, is anywhere from a 20 to 30 minute process. Then out of professional courtesy, as I've referenced, the drivers will pull forward. But that second truck in line, they're now 40 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour. And Amy and I have talked about this on a podcast stating, can you imagine if you were a car customer and it took you 30 minutes to fuel your car? You wouldn't go back there.
Oh, no way.
Or by the time you did decide to go inside and get your receipt, as an example, if that was the process, you certainly wouldn't be inclined to wait in another line.
I would think not.
So...
you guys were talking about the box trucks. What do you see as the changes happening for what are truck stops doing differently to service those vehicles? Gotcha.
Well, what's really interesting, what I'm finding taking place is when Lisa first mentioned that to me, and then when I'm in the field and I'm looking for it, I started to notice that a lot of those types of trucks were accustomed to fueling in the front.
Okay.
So as she referenced, maybe it's an 18 or 19-year-old person who's accustomed to fueling their car at a local convenience store. And when they would go to these travel centers, they were looking to fuel up the front. A lot of folks in the industry, and they're quickly changing this, but a lot of us, they only served diesel on the backside.
Okay.
Sometimes these box trucks couldn't even fit the high flow nozzle in the first place. So they'd be sending on the back to get diesel fuel. The pump wouldn't fit, which was interesting. But I noticed and continue to notice that these trucks often are migrating to convenience store operators who are getting into our industry, like the racetracks, like the Quick Trips, the Casey's, the Thorntons of the world. And that's kind of what they've grown up seeing and they're fueling. The traditional travel centers, what I believe are doing, and to counter this, is making sure that they have auto diesel, for lack of better words, in more positions up front than just one. Lisa told me something that was really fascinating when I first joined, that she owns a diesel vehicle, and how hard it was for her to fuel sometimes at our members' locations, because they either didn't have auto diesel in the front or they were limited. And again, that comment of waiting, she would have to wait a significant amount of time because they only had one diesel pump, as an example.
Since you brought it up, that issue is a problem, and it's a problem when they just have it at one position, trying to figure out where they have it and then having to wait. And if you're towing an RV or something like we are, that's very difficult to sort of wait without getting in everybody's way for that one space. So we always love it when we see that there's more than one fueling position for diesel.
Yeah, and she's spot on. What's really interesting is, local let's call it plumbers or landscapers, people that have trailers that have diesel pickups, especially like the Dodge and the Ford pickups with the diesel engines, so they can tow a lot more. It's the same thing. The travel centers that do, for lack of better words, auto diesel, or let's call it diesel in the front, have significantly more of those types of customers than the ones who do it poorly.
Okay.
And, my husband likes to fuel at truck stops because the throughput is faster, and, he doesn't like to have diesel just sitting in a tank forever. So we always look for the truck stops, of course, on the road. And I've been surprised at how many of them don't have it in the front. So I'm hoping that will change, because I think there will be a greater need for that, not just with the box trucks, of course, but with RVs that are increasing in numbers too.
Yeah, that's we've been trying to teach our members to really think about that. If you think about a landscaping crew that pulls up again in a Dodge a diesel. There's 3 or 4 or 5 folks in there. They're the perfect customer for us. They come in, they're quick, they grab a lot of the profitable types of foods and hot foods, grab and go foods, and they're on their way. It's the perfect type of customer for our travel centers.
And I would argue too, families are really important too.
Yeah.
We stop at some of our favorite stops on 95 when we're going from, the DC area south, and we like to stop at places where there are a lot of choices. And of course, our members are places where there are a lot of choices typically. I could get something maybe in the grab and go. I like to have grab and go, fruit, or, get a muffin, something like that. And then my kids always want, what's on the grill.
Right.
And then, my husband will be looking for a sandwich or a slice of pizza, something like that. So we all have something that we can pick from instead of just stopping at one place and trying to make everybody happy.
Lisa, when you brought that trend up, there have been travel centers listening to, especially with the RV. It's, we've done a couple of blogs. Your husband's been very helpful with those blogs, by the way. And it's amazing to see people starting to react to that, actually thinking about that type of customer. Could I put, for example, a couple pumps up to the front that have both gas and diesel that are very similar to the old Flying J model, where they would have the separated pumps and so forth for that particular customer? And again, those people that are making that investment are doing that, are saying they're seeing a different type of customer. They're seeing RV customers that they never saw before. They've got demographic changes, and it's returning a profit on their investment.
And some of the products that the truck drivers want are also products that maybe the RVer wants, but just marketing it that way, letting them know. I've been to some stops that have offered, propane that sell propane RVs need. And they also offer water to fill tanks and things like that, but there was no signage anywhere.
Right.
And that would be a very welcoming, thing for RVers to have, is to see that there are things for them there. And again, you may have 2 to, in the summertime, more than 2 people in that vehicle that are going to stop. They're probably not going to stay nearly as long as the truck drivers, but they are going to buy things inside.
That's a great point. So one of our members, independent members, Russell's, has a travel center in I-40. And when I visited that store and then talking with them, they frequently get compliments from RV owners because they have a lot of grocery products, more than a traditional travel center. And they get feedback from those customers saying they like to stop there because it's challenging sometimes to take an RV into a grocery store or into a Walmart or so forth like that. And by the family offering that type of product for them, they've seen some really nice, sales from that type of customer.
Something that we rarely see that I love seeing is, not to talk bathroom talk here, but tank treatment and toilet paper for septic systems.
Sure.
So that's something that I think, the truck stops could start pulling in different types of customers if they start appealing to their needs.
And what's neat about that, what you said earlier, you got to let customers know you have that. And
absolutely.
You're exactly right. If you don't have the proper signage, if you're not focusing on that customer, you'll put it in there and you think it won't sell. And it's not that it doesn't sell, it's just customers don't know you have it.
And again, many of the products are things that they probably already sell, but they sell it in an exclusively trucker part of the store.
That's correct.
And we also saw, I think it was at Quick Trip, they have the grocery carts and grocery baskets so that you can get more stuff. Was so smart.
Yes, I will fill up whatever I have normally.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, your hands are just full.
Yes.
Is there any other, what are you looking at for the next few years? What do you think for trucking trends?
Well, I think that, I hate to say this because it's not really a trucking trend, but I think that more of our members are going to see an even higher percentage of their total customers are coming from cars and just, non-trucks. And I think that knowing that, they've got to look at ways that they can appeal to those four-wheelers.
Okay.
Because they're going to be increasing in importance. I think that their positioning, having them be right, off of the interstate. So, families and people who are traveling and who aren't familiar with the area, that they can get off and get everything they need right there. They don't have to go to a convenience store or gas station and then go to a restaurant. They have everything right there. So I think that's one thing that they should be taking a look at. And as far as just trends in retail, I think we talked a lot about this, but having an experience and not just, you're not just selling products, you're selling an experience. People like experiences. And also having things that really fit in with your area. So if you are near a national park, for example, or on the way to a national park, or you're in a specific, space where, for example, we have a member in Virginia who has a lot of marketing around a sports team in his area. And it's just something unique. Right. When you stop and you see something new to the area or local, people like to have that. They like that local flavor, especially when you're traveling, because those types of people are not familiar with the area. So it may be a way for them to learn.
That's a good point.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to transition to our fast fill fun questions. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm a little concerned.
Okay. What is your go-to on the road snack?
I love Perfect bars. So when I can find those, I'm very happy. But they're refrigerated and they're like energy or nutrition bars.
Okay. If you're stuck at a truck stop in a snowstorm, what are you going to do?
Stuck at a truck stop?
Yeah, how are you going to pass the time?
Well, there's any number of things to do. It would depend on where I was, of course. But, I have been known to look for Pac-Man.
Oh.
And games.
Well, that's a new one. Okay. Do you like to drive or ride?
Oh my gosh, there's no question. I do not like to drive at all. In fact, we've driven tens of thousands of miles all over the country, and I've never driven 1 mile of that. My husband drives every single mile. He gets car sick, and I love to read in the car. So there you go.
He doesn't ask you questions? See,
we talk. I mean, I don't read continuously. Okay. Yeah.
My husband likes to stop me and make me oh, look at that building. What is it? And I'm like,
Lisa and I are the only two people that can get lost together with GPS.
Yes, we have.
Well, I already know the answer to this one, but I'll ask it anyways. How do you take your truck stop coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
I know.
I love iced tea. And this summer I was in Canada and I noticed there was a place that we went to that had all different kinds of iced tea. They had a whole tea station. I was in heaven.
Okay. And this one is a controversial one. Is it truck stop, travel center, or travel plaza?
Hey, you know what? You can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. I know what you are.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Thanks everyone for listening.
Having me.
Yes. You can find us online at thetruckstopshere.show. If you have any questions that you'd like us to answer on the podcast, I hope you'll reach out to me at editor@natso.com.
Bye, Amy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
The Truck Stops Here was brought to you by NATSO, the association representing truck stops and travel centers. Visit natso.com for more information. The Truck Stops Here is produced by NATSO in collaboration with Human Factor. Producers are Amy Toner and Darren Schulte.